Attention, roll call. All right, everybody, thanks for joining us this morning. Fortunate news last night. I'm sure most of you are aware. Eric and his wife Louisa and his daughter Ellie, they lost their loved son, Derek. It's a statement from the family. Dear friends and loved ones, it is with profound sadness that we share the passing of our beloved son, Derek. Derek peacefully passed away this morning after a courageous year-long battle with brain cancer. Our family is heartbroken and navigating this difficult time. We kindly request privacy as we grieve and process this loss. Arrangements and further details will be shared at a later date. Thank you for your support, love, and understanding, the Dim family. So, thank everybody for all your support, your prayers for Eric. He's been overwhelmed the whole time since he's made this public. Just please, if send him your love and prayers. But I think we've all instructed him to take his time with his family. So he's got to take care of his family. But he'll be back. And when we know anything further, anything that they want us to put out, we'll put it out. We got Ron and Marlon on here this morning. Ron, thanks for joining.
Hey, how are you, John? Good morning. Yeah, horrible news we got yesterday morning. It's unimaginable as a parent to have dealt with what Eric and Louisa and Ellie, even as a little sister, have put up with for the last year. And I tell you, Eric is probably the strongest man I've ever seen. I don't even want to say to put a game face on, because it's Eric. To keep up that positive attitude throughout this whole thing, never giving up hope. We all hoped and prayed for a better outcome. It's tragic. But like you said, the community has come together and supported him over the last year. Paul and Chrissy Manicone with the GoFundMe that enabled them to give Derek the best that they could have given him over this last year. And then once he took his turn for the worst a few months ago, and they had to find, a brick and mortar to set up the in-home hospice. So many people surrounded him with love and support. In California, his first responder family, the Marine Corps, his martial arts family, all came together, and they set up home in Laguna Beach. So I'm going to read a message that the Laguna Beach Police Department sent out to their team yesterday after they got the news. It says, "Dear team, it is with deep sorrow that I share the heartbreaking news of the passing of NYPD Lieutenant Eric Dim's 8-year-old son, Derek, who tragically died from cancer this morning while living on hospice here in Laguna Beach. This loss is unimaginable, and our hearts are heavy with grief for Eric and his family. As a department and as a family in blue, we stand with them during this time of profound pain. No words fully ease their suffering, but we hope they feel the support and love from us all. We are in communication with the family and will share any details as soon as they are available. Please hold off on contacting the family until we give the word. Please keep the Dim family in your thoughts and prayers. For those who need it, peer support resources are available, and no one should feel alone in processing this kind of loss. Thank you for being the kind of team that always come together when it matters most. With sympathy, Tom Spratt and Dave Genzema." So that's the post that they put out. They've been instrumental. They're actually providing an honor guard at this time for the family. I also want to give a shout out and thank Amazing Aunt for all of her support, part of the Finest Unfiltered family, who's been pretty much the point person with the California community. So thank you, Antoinette.
Yeah. Good morning, guys. Thanks for joining us today, and thank you for all the support you've given Eric and his family. And cancer is quite a scourge on humanity, and I hope that eventually we could all get past this, because this is just tragic for any parent to lose their child. And going forward, just continue to keep your prayers with Eric, Louisa, and Ellie, and the rest of the Dim family. And so it's just tough, guys, but just keep them in our thoughts and prayers.
Yeah, just a big shout out to the whole community. Horrible situation, but I gotta say, it really, like, watching the whole thing, like, kind of, as horrible as it is, and I'm devastated for Eric and Louisa. I have no idea what that's like. I don't ever wish that on anybody, but definitely watching all of you and everybody come together to try to support Derek definitely helped restore my faith in the law enforcement community. So just shout out to you guys.
And just want to piggyback on one thing you said, John. Speaking to Eric yesterday, obviously the most difficult time in his life, and Eric being Eric and us knowing Eric, I told Eric, and I just want to put it out to the community. His phone, once it went public, I'm sure has just not stopped. And I told him, I said, Eric, it's not time. He always wanted to respond and be responsive and available to everybody. And I said, it's time now to just concentrate on your wife and your daughter. Don't feel the need to respond to everyone's condolences. So don't anybody take it personal if you don't hear back from Eric. He's getting all the messages. He appreciates beyond belief the support and the messages of love and concern that he's getting now. But we've all told him, you got to go off the grid with the phone and just take care of what needs to be taken care of.
Yeah, let's try to bring as much awareness to cancer as we can. I think this is like a this is we need a wake up call in this country about it, and we need to solve this so that more young lives aren't tragically ended. So,
all right. So like we said, when we know more, we'll let you guys know. We'll put out what Eric wants public. We'll keep private what he wants private. And so for right now, that was the statement that he wanted out. And just shout out to Laguna Beach PD and fire department for everything that they've done in the Laguna Beach community, the jiu-jitsu community there. Really, truly amazing to watch. So let's segue. So all right, everybody, thanks for joining us this morning. Terrible morning, hard day yesterday. So I guess first topic, we're going to be talking about all out's coming up, but before we get into that, I just want to kind of lighten the mood a little bit. So I'm going to bring the first topic up. Wanted flyer that was recently released by the detective squad for a perpetrator who was wanted for robbery. Made national headlines. I'm hearing potentially there were transfers over this. I haven't confirmed it. I've really been away from my phone. I've gotten a ton of stuff, but I just haven't had the time to really go through it. But this is the wanted flyer. This was the perpetrator. This is a legit wanted flyer put out. Person wanted for attempted robbery. 115 detective squad. So this made headlines because of the busty photo. So Ron, you want to go first? Like, what are your thoughts when you're seeing this?
My thoughts are, who is the supervisor that approved that photo? Because wanted photos don't just get put out there; they got to be approved for distribution. She's a known, identified person. She's not an unidentified person. It's not a security footage photo. It's a selfie. I don't know. Who's the supervisor that approved that?
I think that really ties into the topic. I mean, the title of the episode today. So the thumbnail is called "Running on Empty," and in a lot of ways, I think this might have been a troll, and it ties into the thumbnail because I think a lot of the job is frustrated right now, and when I see something like this, I have to wonder: did this occur because of did it slip through because of incompetence, or did it slip through because guys were trying to kind of covertly express a little frustration with the way things are going right now? And if because this to me seems like a trolling. So
I mean, there's a couple of things, right? One, the photo could have been used cutting the cleavage out, right?
Mhm.
Cleavage definitely attracts attention, right? I mean, you should have known this was going to hit the paper. I mean, so for the sergeant or the lieutenant that approved it, even the detective that put this on, or the police officer that put this on, they should have known how viral this was going to go. And I'll be honest, my first thought was that they used this photo for it to go viral. So now people might say, well, she's a wanted perpetrator. That's a good thing. She'll be apprehended quicker. I don't mean that. When I say that they put this out there, in my opinion, my first thought was that they put this out there for it to go viral. It wasn't, in my opinion, in saying that, it's not that it was to apprehend her quicker. It was that the image goes viral and everybody gets a good laugh. But I do agree with you, Marlon. There's also the possibility floating there because, I mean, for those of you that don't know, I mean, we get tons of messages every day. Cops, they can't take it. They hate it. They don't know what to do. I got 5 years. I got 7 years. I want to leave. What should I do? So there's all that in the background. So those were my two original first thoughts. I was like, like at the end of the day, is it a huge deal? I mean, yeah, I think it shows a lack of. I think it shows a lack of professionalism. I do. I think if that was my daughter, I'd be pretty upset. I'd be mad that she took the photo. But we can't control our children. And at the end of the day, I would hope that I would know that the cops would be laughing in the squad about the photo, but I would hope they would be smart enough not to utilize that.
Yeah. So I remember when I was in Leeds, we had a case involving I think she was like a one of these webcam models, but I remember having some photos that I was going to put in a brief. And so for all of you who don't know, like whenever Leeds in Intel gets a case, they have to prepare a brief, which is read by the Intel command staff and like the in front of PC the next morning. So I thought, kind of jokingly, I thought it might be funny to include one of her webcam pictures, and I was told by one of the senior detectives that no, that's not a good idea. Yeah. So how this was able to fall through the cracks is very curious. I mean, again, as a troll move, it's hilarious, but as a professional police department, it's not a good look. And you wonder what I wonder what the fallout is going to be from this.
I think
Ron, as an executive, like what are you thinking? Like, if I was the lieutenant, I approve this picture, and you're my borough commander, like what's happening?
You're gone. You're gone. I'm sorry. I know we talk about all the time on all of our shows that the professionalism, the outward-facing view of this job has deteriorated, and this is just, it's just unprofessional. Like you said, that this is, somebody said in the comments, this is obviously from her Instagram or something. She's not shy. I get it. I understand, you know, a lot of times when you have a wanted photo, you want to highlight identifiable body markings. That's quite identifiable. But again, like you said, it either could have been cropped down to the neckline for the face. It's a clear enough photo that it wouldn't have got pixelated. We've seen some of the wanted photos in the past and how cloudy they are. And again, I'm sure since she has, you know, she's been identified, that there were a multitude of other photos that could have been used. But as far as an executive perspective on this, it's inexcusable to me. You know, it's inexcusable to put that up and to be approved. Listen, if the detective putting together, or the White Shield putting together the photo, sends that to you, you come out of your office, you laugh. Like, guy, are you kidding? Come on. Put the real picture in and send it back to me.
Yeah.
You know, but to send this through ECMS, I mean, this is something that, you know, in the squad room, you print out as a joke, maybe, you know, for circulation within the squad room as a joke. But to actually put this through ECMS, which is, for those who aren't familiar, is the detective's computer system, the case management system. And then for the supervisor to approve it. No. And I believe someone in the chat said that sergeant got sent back, or the lieutenant got sent to patrol. And I don't think, and I'm not a hammer. I don't have thick, you know, I have thick skin. I'm pretty patient, and, you know, believe there's a lot of different ways to handle situations other than, you know, harsh discipline. But to me, you know, for you to approve that without some sort of, I don't even know how you could justify it. I don't think you can. I don't think you could come to my office and justify that photo. You can't be in the squad.
Pat Donahue says the goal of a wanted ouster is to draw attention to the alleged perp and other identity. If a known perp, locate. This poster does that. It's obvious. It's from her social media, so she's not shy about so she's not shy about it. So listen, I get you. I get it. I get the defensive posture. Like, hey, you want us to locate them quickly? She just attempted the robbery. We put it out there. It went viral. People are seeing it. We're going to get leads as a result of it. I get it, but again, you know, from a parent perspective, from you know, I do. I think it's unprofessional. Do I think it's the end of the world? Do I think that someone shouldn't be a cop over it or a detective? No, but I think it's something that needs answering. You know, I don't think this is the end of the world, end all be all. Do I think it should have been big headline news in the New York Post? I don't. But that's what happens, right? I mean, and that's something we always talk about on the show with cops, is like, they rarely understand, and we'll say it again for like the millionth time. You're a celebrity. When you mess up, you're going to be on the front cover of the paper. All the good stuff you do, you'll never be in the paper. And if you are, you'll be in the back page of the paper, in some little article, in some little local paper that you won an award for something truly heroic that you did. But none of that will come out. And something as dumb as this will get outweighed by that. You know, you remember Greg Gordon, right? Like, do you remember Detective Greg Gordon in the NYPD? Mike Smith's friend, when he danced with the girl in the West Indian Day Parade. It was harmless, but it was like national news. It was harmless, like, you know, and I think, you know, that's the one thing. I think everything you got to understand, everything you write on paper, everything you do, and now every place you go, because you're on camera everywhere, you're a celebrity. You don't have the money. You're not living like a celebrity, but you garner just as much attention as anybody in the news. So anything you're doing, a report you take, an arrest you make, a complaint report you draw up, an interaction you have on the street, has the potential to be national news within seconds.
Now, Tom Joyce is saying in the chat, it is unprofessional and should not have been released. However, it can be defended. I'd like to know how. Patrick Donahue has a point. I'll put this out to you, Tom. Would you have approved it? Could a detective really have come into you and justified that photo, or would you have made him or her go back out and find a different photo?
Yeah, I think that's the real question. I think that's the real question from the supervisor. And Tom Joyce says, no, sir. So, and I think that's it. So, but I think Marlon's right? Like, there is the potential there for the burnout. Like, is this a result of I'm just done with this job and I don't care, and like I'm just you want me to get the flyer out? Yes, sir. I'll get this flyer out right now. And too busy to crop it out. I'm going to run to my 19th detail, and just boom. There's definitely that potential. I mean, it's what's the title of the episode? We said all cops in for a sleepless summer. All out's coming. What all out is basically people are getting their RDOs changed, which is their regular days off. And it affects people's lives. It does. It affects their kids' schedule. It affects their wife's schedule. Even if they're not married and don't have kids, it throws them off, throws off their sleep schedule, potentially getting transferred commands. So they're all over the place doing different tours. Police work's very intrusive on your life. It's even more so when people don't respect that you actually are human and not a robot. And I kind of feel like under the Tisch administration, that's what's happening. I think cops were actually better off under the Kaban administration as far as maybe not as the way that they looked, but as far as the way they were being treated. Cops were like, because not that the administration was paying attention to them, but they were kind of being left alone more. Now they're being very heavily micromanaged. And I think the transfers have came down, the tour changes have came down, the RDO changes have came down, and all out still hasn't even started. And we've seen throughout this whole winter, detail after detail after detail. And we know that traditionally picks up in the summer, but with all of the tension going on in New York City, it's going to pick up to another pace. So this post comes out on the Survive Policing thread. If you guys don't follow them on Instagram or on social media, I suggest you do. Post is titled, I am with the NYPD. I hate my job. I just wanted to come out here to spread some awareness to just how terrible life is working with the NYPD. For anyone thinking of it, really think about not having a schedule and never knowing what time you'll actually get out, or just feeling like a modern day slave. I am forced, mandated to work 80 hours of overtime a month, not a year. Every effing month. I am so sick of it because my life circumstances, I am stuck here because a job is a job. I can't even begin to tell you how many times I've been told to come in at a time other than my normal shift. 5 a.m., 4 a.m., 3 a.m., 10 a.m., etc. 3 to 4 times a week. I'm so sick of it. Coming in on my days off and not by choice is the norm. The brass simply do not care about us. They do not see us as human beings. I'd like to think something will change one day, but that's simply a wish at this point. You think that a police department would only get forced to come into work under an emergency like a hurricane. Nope. Crime is up. Sorry, you have to come in for work, just for presence. Come in and stand on a street corner for 12 hours on your day off. Random festival or parade? ? Better summon 100 cops to come in on their day off. It's just sickening, and I am truly so sick of it. I'm just done. Anyone considering this job, just really think about basically no set schedule. I'm not even going into how easily we get thrown under the bus for minor things and for crucial for taking action. That's a whole other story. What do you think about that?
It's sad. It's sad to hear the thought process of cops today. because I come from a time on the job where we loved the job, we loved coming to work. We knew we weren't the highest paid, and I'm talking about when we really weren't paid a lot of money, and a lot of guys had to have a second job just to pay your bills, not to live extravagant lifestyles and drive around in new cars. It's not untrue that that guys are getting abused. They're getting abused with the overtime. That the city has created the mass exodus. The city and state legislature, the upper echelon of the police department, and how the members are treated in the obvious and overt nepotism, and in promotions and transfers, people aren't being rewarded properly the way they should be rewarded. And the answer is always just throw more cops out there, throw more cops out there. What happened to precision policing? Take your resources and target the problem and address the problem. Omnipresence is one thing, and it does have a place in policing. But I think that the perception management has taken more of a front seat than actual hardcore, old-fashioned police work.
Yeah, if I could just go back to that photo again, that photo is to me it seems a little distorted there. So not only is the photo a little bit it's a little bit out there, but it to me it doesn't show a clear enough image of her face. It seems a little bit distorted, right? So this goes back to what I said before. There's a lot of frustration on the job right now. And to me, it seems like even if this wasn't a troll move, this was a whatever. Let me put something out there move, And the frustration that cops have with the job, I think it's because the job itself doesn't appreciate like quality of job life, And quality of job life is cops having you're never going to have a fully set schedule as a cop. It's never going to happen. But there should be some semblance of routine, so that guys could they can have they can set up schedules with their family and with their kids, and with they can have some sort of balance between the job and their life away from the job. And I've said this before. If cops have a happy job life, quality of job life, then they're going to reflect that happiness when they deal with the public. Now, if they're frustrated on the job, they're 100% going to reflect that frustration on the public, and they're going to have a much shorter demeanor, or when having to deal with the public, and that in itself will cause further cascading problems, And the job right now seems to be in this mode where they think they just think cops are like robots, and you can change their tours, you can have them working like 17 hours a day and not going home in days, and you could continuously repeatedly do that, and that has no impact on them, And I just can't understand it. To me, it seems like not only is there no appreciation for quality of life for cops, but there's no appreciation for human beings, and life is short, we have to, there has to be a balance that's met between the job and the personal lives of cops. And if it's not met, you're going to get more unhappy cops, and that harms the quality of the service that the NYPD provides.
Yeah, and I see Rob Nappy in here. He says, if you told my dead father and my uncles they could work 60 hours a month OT, they'd all rise from the graves. I worked a strict 35, 40-hour cap my entire time as in the NYPD. The thing is, like, in the past, like, people wanted the overtime. You want to make the money, but what we're talking about is this is not overtime on your schedule. This is overtime on your days off. This is overtime when you have other plans. This is a huge strain on your marriage, on your relationship, on your friendships. Has police work always been that? 100%. 100% it has been. Throughout my career, there were times I knew I wasn't going to be home. Leading up to the 4th of July, I was going to be working tons of overtime. The 4th of July, I was working tons of overtime. The West Indian, I was working tons of overtime. Gay Pride Parade, tons of overtime. Anything around any high profile, high time where we're going to be out there, enforcement type holidays where we need to be out there because potential for violence is there. I mean, I wasn't home, and I was never home, and I knew. And then going to work on the day to day, you never knew, but there were down times, there were lulls, there were times throughout the year. I was always blessed because I did enforcement. Thanksgiving, Christmas, I got to take a little time off. I got to spend a little time. I spread my vacations out properly, so I was afforded the proper rest. But I had more vacation time than most of the younger guys did today. I accrued a lot of time, more than these younger guys do today. I think, like, police work is a calling. And I mean, I could tell you stories for days. I remember a very rare night where me and my partner, we both had something to do the next day. He had a wedding and I had a wedding. And I'm like, bro, we're not doing nothing. I'm not doing nothing. And I was like, we're not stopping nobody. We're not doing nothing. I don't even smoke cigars. He's like, come on, let's get a cigar. Let's smoke cigar. So, like, not in uniform. We're not in my car driving around. We get a cigar. We don't light it 3 seconds. Next thing we know, we look over at the train station and there's a kid getting robbed at gunpoint. Next thing we know, we're working for the next 3 days. Neither of us go to that wedding. But I went back to work gladly at that time frame, because I was treated like a gentleman. I was treated like my supervisors did care about my health. They did. When I was working too much, they would tell me. When I looked like shit, they would tell me. Now, it's not that your immediate supervisors don't care about you. It's that the brass all the way up at the top, because the immediate supervisors are just getting slammed. Notification after notification, transfer after transfer, tour chains after tour chain. I would hate to be like, I always hated the admin. Not that I hated the admin lieutenant, but I hated the thought of ever being the admin lieutenant. Right? I used to feel bad for him. I'm like, this guy's got to notify everybody at the last minute that they can't go to work. You know what I mean? Like, I always felt bad for him. I was never mad at him when he hit me. I was like, it is what it is. It is what it is. Somebody's got to do it. But the constant 7 days a week, and there is no lull in the winter time. The winter is just like those enforcement periods all summer. So it's like he said, like in the post, I hope that one day it slows down, but I don't see that in sight. And the reason is because for the last 2 years, it hasn't slowed down at all. It's only gotten significantly worse while they're telling you crime's down, while they're telling you the head count is fine, while they're telling you there's absolutely no problems in the NYPD and the locker room's in a good place.
Yeah, and one of the things that was supposed to fix part of this, right, was the 12-hour tours. There goes Marlon again. Was the 12-hour tours, which could work. Less appearances, less financial burden of travel back and forth. But that's if you have a department that can man it properly and you're doing your 12 hours and you can schedule those extra days off, right? You can make plans with your family. You could even know that I have time that I'm going to decompress. Rob talks about it and everybody's talking about, I would love to do overtime. I used to love overtime. I was that guy. You could always count on me to take something up. But we weren't, it was a financial need also, but it was more on our terms, very rarely were you ordered. Listen, you knew when the holidays were coming up, you're trying to dodge, the notifications and the lieutenant and whatnot. you knew you were going to get hit with, I was a Brooklyn cop, so you knew you were definitely doing the West Indian Day parade and the Juvees, and that whole week you were just you knew you're getting crushed. And there were days you did a detail, and there were guys that would get hit with an RDO detail. It would swing until 4 or 5 in the morning, and then they had to work a day tour. And people didn't take into consideration these things. And I used to, as a CO, one cop came into me, or actually it was a SBA delegate came into me and says, "Listen, he's getting notified for the Juve, and he's got to be back for a day tour." I'm like, it's impossible. He's not even going to get released from his detail in time. I've worked at Juve how many years? He's not going to get released from his detail in time. And then I brought the lieutenant. I'm like, you got to think of these things. You got to take into consideration work charts. Just even if he got released a couple hours before his tour, the guy just stood for 18 hours in brutal humidity, probably on his feet for a Juve. And then even if he has a couple hours off in between, when he comes into the station house, what are we going to do? Guy hit the locker room. I'm sorry. You don't have a useful body for work. Even if you want to think about the job and the needs of the department. Well, the needs of the department is a healthy department and healthy members. And John, you're 100% right. The admin lieutenant spot can be a great spot at times. There's a lot of perks to it, right? Take care of certain people. You can take, you're cherry picking your own overtime and everything else. But you have to put an effort in, and you have to take that into consideration. And when I was the borough commander in Housing Bronx, Queens, I had to actually bring an admin lieutenant up to my office. And because I tried talking to the CO, and next thing you know, I'm still seeing the issues. And I always had an open door policy with delegates. And sometimes they come in and just whine about the stupidest shit, and I just chase them away. But when they're telling me about things like this, I had to bring the admin lieutenant in and say, listen, that's gotta stop. It's gotta stop. And this was way before, all the protests began, and it was just chaos. Now you'd have to put extra staff in to be handling all these notifications. It can't just be, the admin lieutenant, the principal, the cop in the admin office, whatever the case may be. It's unreasonable expectations. And the 12-hour tours was supposed to alleviate that. And that was the pitch. And that's why cops wanted it, right? They wanted less appearances. They wanted to come into work. You're working 8.5 hours. You're at the, which means you're really there for at least probably 9.5 hours at the base. That's if you come in, you take your time changing, you get down to roll call, and you get off on time, which how often does that even really happen? Because personnel is so low. You're getting stuck with late jobs, and then you're getting your balls broken because, you're putting in for overtime. And I always was, listen, if you work, put in for it. I don't want to hear it. And don't ever bitch to people for doing it. I used to tell the sergeants, manage the queue better if, don't bitch at them if they get stuck on a job.
Yeah, I think it's even more than the overtime, though, because I used to work a lot of overtime in the precinct too. But I think it's the overtime in combination with all the scrutiny and the draconian disciplinary process that kind of weighs down on morale and kind of it kind of makes cops feel even more miserable than just being tired. So there's a rumor going around that ICOs are, that word is coming down to crack down on RMP parking again. So you have to be careful of where you're parking your RMP when you respond to jobs. And to me, it's like, is this the right time for all of that? I mean, with all that's going on, it's like we're throwing something else on top of cops that they have to worry about getting a discipline for. And it's things like that just adds another layer of something else that pushes down the job's morale right now. And it's not good. It's not good for the long-term health of the job, and it's not good for the quality of service that the the NYPD is providing. To Ron's point again, I remember when I did a 18-hour tour at the African American Day Parade in Harlem. This was back in 2010 or 2009. There was like 7 people shot that day, so it was a busy day, and I was directing traffic for must have been like 15 hours straight. And I remember when that was done, I was like, I was just done completely. So which goes, it just goes back to what Ron said, that at a certain point, that cop is ineffectual, and it just wears down them so much that what use are they going forward? After that 18 hours, I was done. You could literally do something in front of me, and I just didn't have the strength or the energy to, I had no breaks during those 18 hours, so I couldn't, I was ineffective. So the more the job does this, the more we're hurting the service that we're providing, period.
And Michael Furia, yeah, I did mean Juve. What did I say? I'm not sure what I said. I was talking about the Juve for West Indian Day weekend. What did I say?
No, you said that.
Yeah. But yeah, even last night, like and like, people are like, oh, people, they complain, cops complain, they're crybabies, but like, I'm getting messages from guys and girls that don't complain. I'm getting messages from people who I know love the job, overtime hounds, collar hounds. I got one last night. It's getting bad, bro. The commission is hammering us. Morale cannot get any lower. Please do an episode on how the PBA is useless. It's like, and I like, everybody puts the blame, because they are the biggest union, on the PBA, and everyone puts the blame on the unions. They're not the mayor. They don't appoint the leadership. I agree with you. Could there be more done? Should there be more things said about people getting hammered and all of the transfers? Yeah, there should. But at the end of the day, like Marlon said, it's always going to come back to the needs of the department. And as the department shrinks, the need for the overtime rises, right? So, they're saying they're going to get the numbers back up to 35,000. They're claiming that the numbers are at 33.5. I don't know how. I don't know what formula of math they're using. They must be doing the same type of formula that they use to tell you that murders were down in 2024, when in fact murders were up in 2024. They must be using some form of CompStat magic, because there's absolutely no way that the numbers are over 30,000 with the amount of staffing that they have at current levels right now. So yeah, the overtime rise, if you look at the overtime numbers over the course of the last few decades, obviously salaries have increased, but you'll see the overtime nearly doubled in some cases. When we talk about 2024, when that data is officially out, you're going to see it's going to be much, much larger than even the double increase over the last 10 years. And so, and like what Marlon said, it's not even just the constant ordering on your RDOs. It's not even just, you don't know what command you're going to be in from one day to the next. I mean, officially being transferred. You don't know what tour you're going to be on, because you're officially getting transferred. But now you're showing up here completely exhausted, like what Ron was talking about. Like you got hit for Juve. You did 18 hours in Juve, and now you're doing another 22 hours at the West Indian Day Parade. I've done it. I mean, I've done that. That is brutal. It's brutal. Like, it's everybody should experience one of those one day. And you know what? And to do it, you got to be young and in good shape. And I was at that time. I don't know that I could do that now at 45. I don't know that I would be able to get through that hot summer doing Juve right into the West Indian. I mean, absolutely brutal. But this is what's going on when you're there. And by the way, this isn't just one message. This is all out, must read, right? But this also applies to the transit post. I've seen messages for this from the NYPD. This applies to mobile field force. This applies to regular details. It's just a constant threat, right? So here you go. Going forward, these rules apply to all out. If you are assigned to all out and you don't show up, you will be permanently assigned to that all-out command. This transfer will take place immediately. For example, if you no-show for all-out in the 4-7 starting on your next tour, you will be assigned to the 4-7. If you show up late for all-out, it will be an automatic CD and cannot be adjudicated as a warn and admonish. Time has to be taken. Now, this is an older message, and this message has evolved. So I just want to let you know that what the cops are being told now is if you show up late, which is insane because there are plenty of reasons why you would show up late to a detail. I've left my house sometimes 2-3 hours ahead of time and still just barely made it to details, depending on the day, the traffic, where I had to go in the city. And I lived in New York City. So, there are things that could happen. Miscommunications from how you're assigned, not being assigned properly. You could have done nothing wrong. You could have showed up to work and they said, go to this detail, and you're already late for the detail. You didn't know. And they're being told now that if they show up late, they're officially transferred. So if you got you're in the 123 precinct and you have to respond to the 50th in the Bronx, and it's midday traffic, and you're like, yeah, you got to go to that detail. The detail was reported at 1200, and you just got into work for the 4 to 12. You're already 2 hours late to that, and it's going to take you about 2 to 3 hours to get there in traffic. You got a big problem because they're going to look to transfer you. If you if you are replacing someone on all out, you must present name and text to the THV, as well as the name and tax of the MOS that you are replacing. If you fail to do so, this will also result in being permanently assigned to that command. So, I mean, the threats are just insane at this point. And then my other question is, what is the need for this? Are people actually not showing up to details? Because if they are, who the hell are you hiring? And how are they still cops?
Yeah, and I don't know when that message was from, but didn't they say that all out was going to be different this year? They weren't going to be like assigned to one place. They were almost going to be like mobile field forces, right? So guys are living out of their cars because they don't even know where they're going to be. Or they responded to their command, suiting up, and then head down to all out. They're not getting paid. They're getting travel time. Okay, you get an hour and 15 minutes or an hour or 45 minutes, depending if it's within your own borough, right? And I don't care where you work. You're showing up. Now you got to suit up, and now you got to head back out. And again, like you said, now you're talking about traffic. You're talking about inconsistencies, added time, added stress, because now I don't even know where I'm going to be working every day. When you come into the command, you don't have a steady seat. You don't have a steady sector. All right, but I know I'm working in the 7-0. I know I'm coming to work. I'm going to work in the 7-0. I don't know where I'm going to be today because I don't have a steady seat. All right, that's one thing. Well, now you got to come to work, and I don't know what command I'm going to be in. I don't know who I'm going to be working with. I got to work out how I'm going to get there. It's just added stress. I'm not a huge fan of the whole all out, and again, how the job manipulates it, and how it was going to be a temporary transfer for the summer, and then people were never sent back. And you're taking people out of details that we talk about the nepotism, right? And people can't get details and can't get into specialty assignments. And now you get assigned even to an investigatory unit. And now you're getting sent out because you're the low man on the pole to this Operation All Out, which is bad enough. And then you find out you're not even coming back. Without even this whole, if you don't show up, if you're late, if you're this, if you're that, which is total horseshit. Unless it's habitual. If you're late, you're late. It happens. It happens. But listen, if you're late every day, then there's an issue that needs to be addressed. If you don't show up for a detail, if you don't show up for your all out, what does that mean? That means you came into work and you said you're going to all out today. And for some reason, if you don't show up, like you said, how do you not show up? How do I get an assignment and just snub my nose at it? Now, Mike Smith in the comments saying, hey, we used to blow off details all the time because of needs of the department. We're working a heavy case, whatever the case may be. And that's going to happen too. And as the desk, sometimes you got to mitigate that. As the borough, you got to mitigate that. And you got to call around. And we used to get details and say, all right, upon turnout. Love those, upon turnout. Now, you're already at minimum manning, right? It's hard enough to get guys to go out and girls to go out to to safely answer the radio runs. And now the borough calls up and says, all right, upon turnout, you're sending 1 in 4 because the projected numbers said that you had all these people. And now, who am I stripping down? Oh, send your inside people. All right, well, you know what? To be perfectly honest, a lot of the inside people have a legitimate job to do. And having run multiple commands and details, you know, like I've always said, there's a seat for every ass on this job, and not all of them are inside an RMP. You know, these people are in these other spots for a reason. You know, and to keep the job going, you have to have these people in these jobs. Unless you're going to give me competent civilians that are going to, you know, which they always talk about. Oh, we're going to get the cops back on the street. We're going to hire more civilians. Yeah, I never see the civilians. I never see the civilians getting hired to replace my cops. Very rarely.
Yeah, you know, to go back on what you said about what was mentioned about a PBA, I'll say I do think that the PBA is useless. I think all the unions are useless, because if you're a union boss, you really should be on this show like once a month, giving an update on the situation and letting cops know that what you've been doing. But instead, you're letting this frustration that cops are having, you're letting it build, and you're letting them wonder. Even if you're doing something, you're not letting them know what you're doing right now, and these problems that we've brought up, you should be the ones talking about this, okay? And instead, you're not. So I think the unions are useless, and also the all out as a strategy itself, I think, is questionable. Now, I say this having been sent on all out in 2016, and in fact, all out actually froze my track for 3 months. So I was supposed to get promoted in like May, but it didn't happen until like almost a month after all out had ended. So I was angry at that, but you know, I was always an active cop, so I figured, you know what, you send me an all out, you're gonna pay, okay? And I'm gonna grab bodies, and you guys are gonna be filling out 49s for all my overtime, and I did that. But let me tell you, there was a lot of people on all out who were frustrated about the situation, they had to change their schedule, and they had to make arrangements for their kids and their family, and they expressed that frustration by you know, just putting on the blinders on all out. So what I'm saying is, I'm not so sure that all out is really an effective strategy for actually like fighting crime in the summertime to begin with, because so many cops are so
Definitely not.
frustrated that you've just change their plans for the summer like that are they going to be motivated to actually do anything? And also, when I was on all out, there are a lot of cops who were unfamiliar with that neighborhood. You know, I was always a Brooklyn guy, and especially I grew up in those parts. Like I was in the 6-7, so I was pretty familiar with the area. But when you're putting cops who aren't familiar with the area in that new precinct for a short time, and you're asking them to be productive, you know, it's like first they have to learn the actual community and the actual command and what's out there in order to be productive, and they're frustrated to begin with. So how are they actually going to make a significant impact on in that command, you know, to make the entire all out worthy, you know? I don't think it's a good strategy at all, and I think it's just putting a band-aid on a long-term problem that the job has, which is, as we've said before, the manpower shortage.
No, I think that's a great point, dude. That's something we really need to hone in on, right? All out. Like, what has it done? You're basically just using these guys as like stationary cameras.
Yeah.
You might as well just put a camera. I always ask everybody, like I've been doing this for a long time, even when I was on the job. What do you do when you're on all out? Nothing. I'm like, do you handle 911 calls? No. Do you write summonses? No. Do you make arrests? No. I'm like, so we're just deploying 1,000 officers a day to be cameras. Because like you said, they don't know the command. They more than likely don't even know the arrest procedure because they're in a different borough than what they used to. So they're not comfortable. They're not really proficient, competent police officers at that point in time. The other thing is you're taking guys that like, everybody would always like be like, oh, those one PP admin guys. I was like, dude, don't ever become one of them. I've seen guys with 600 collars. I've seen guys that have combat crosses. I've seen guys that are legitimately the police, American heroes. They get one of their buddies, becomes a chief or whatever. Oh, come work for me. Goes to 1PP. Guy retires, and they're treated like they're zero do-nothings, and they never did anything on this job. And I'm like, I'm like, don't ever go the admin route in the police department because they treat you like you're worse than a rookie. They treat rookies better than you. And you see that today, right? You see kids with 20 arrests that know absolutely nothing running around, carte blanche, 2-hour workouts, overtime when they want, not when they don't want, totally off the radio, and second grade detectives. Like, guys, like what the breakdown of that job. And I think that's such an important thing. Is it a great crime fighting tool? I'm going to say right now, absolutely not. It is literally just presence. And that's what we've been doing since really 2020. Our response to everything is flood it with cops. And so we don't stop crime. We don't prevent crime. We don't solve crime. We just push crime to a different area. All right, we're up here. We pushed it away from there for a few weeks. I mean, Roosevelt Avenue is the perfect example of that. Right? This whole media tour about how they were going to get rid of the prostitution. They were going to get rid of the drug dealing. Kaz Daughtry goes on the news, tells them they're going to do it for 90 days. The state agencies are going to be there. They displace crime temporarily. Not even much of it, only a little bit of it. They do no long-term investigations. There's no long-term impact on the community. 90 days is over. NYPD's gone. State troopers are gone. News cameras are gone. Guess what's back? Or actually never left. The prostitution and the drug dealing, worse than it was before they came.
And Roosevelt Avenue is one of those places, and I'm very familiar. I was the impact captain for the 110, 115 along Roosevelt Avenue, and then I was the CO of the 110. So I've seen it. And Roosevelt Avenue has always been one of those locations. It's like 125th Street uptown. There's a task force, right? There used to be the Roosevelt Avenue Task Force, and then there was the Impact. But it was a maintenance program, and at the height of it, I can tell you that 2000 and I'm going to say 6 maybe. I was the Impact captain, and I had over 120 cops on 2 tours assigned to Roosevelt Avenue. That's really it's a different situation. And like you said, you can't just hit and run because they just reappear, especially down there because it's such a transient community. It's a constant influx of new immigrants coming into the area, and it's a unique situation. Same thing like up, like I said, 125th Street. They have a task force up there also because there has to be a maintenance plan for something like that. I think those are outliers from where Operation All Out goes. All Out goes to all the hot spots where crime is increasing. Again, you take cops that are unfamiliar, 1, with police work, 2, with the community and the area, giving them a little pamphlet or, an informational packet, which some of them are just disgustingly full of nothing. It's just a whole bunch of fluff that they hand out. It's a waste of paper. And expect them to absorb that and address it in a day, in a week, a month even, when they are just assigned to this post. And God forbid, inspections, investigations, whatever you call them these days, whatever that unit is with that chief that hammers everybody over the smallest little things.
He just got transferred yesterday, so he's no longer there. There was a big party last night. Yeah, he just got transferred last night.
I mean, this guy, you're sicking the wolves on people that are out there, and if they're not on their little post, they're going to get crushed. And what are you going to do? How, again, like Rob Nappy said, they're basically sticks in the mud, or the I forget the expression. You're there. It's like a wooden Indian, and it is omnipresence. Like I said, does play a part to some crime reduction, but it's not the answer to the violence. To the violence, you need to target it. You need targeted enforcement. Call it precision policing. Call it whatever you want. You're targeting the hardened criminals. You're targeting the recidivists. You need people like Marlon that are going to put together useful information. You need the gang database in order to target these individuals and these crimes. Omnipresence, it is what it is, but it's not the answer. It's not the end all be all. And they have to come up with more. Whether if you feel these people aren't useful enough or needed enough that you can take them out of their assignments for a 3-month period at minimum, right? It's 3 months at minimum to go into these detail. Then really, if they don't have to be there for a quarter of the year, is the position even necessary? Rearrange your personnel and permanently transfer people into these high crime commands, because it's always the same places. It's always the same places. It might be on this block this year instead of this block because, displacement, because I put the cops here, so now they're doing the crimes over here. Then you know what? Then that command needs an influx of officers. You need intelligence, and you need the right people that are going to go out there and do, as Eric has always said, right? Intrusive police work. It's not intrusive to stand on a foot post.
Yeah, I'll add something else to that. How many times on all that does the precinct staff actually talk to the all out cops and brief them on their hotspots in the command, on like the troublemakers and what they have to look out for? Because I could only recall once ever being told any of that when I was in the 6-7, and I was there for 3 months on all out. So it's like the precinct doesn't really expect much of you. So then, and they don't brief you enough about what's going on. So what's the point? It's like the entire process feels so disconnected to me. If you expect cops, if you're putting us on all out in an area and you're expecting us to help the situation, then I expect every day, like the FIOs are going to come down and be like, this is going on here. You got to watch out for this guy. You got to watch out for him. The precinct commander to tell us what to look out for. I expect that every day to be like treated like, as though we're just another platoon in the precinct. But a lot of times you feel like you're not really wanted there, and they really don't even need you there because you're certainly not giving me the info that I needed to be an effective cop. So to me, it's like, what's the point here? Well, what really is the point? This is not an effective strategy. The effective strategy is going back to what Ron says, is precision policing. We need cops in precincts, and we need empowered commanders to assign those cops to the entire precinct, and for the precinct to handle for the precinct staff who knows their community to handle the problems within their community, and to be well staffed enough to be able to do those jobs. And we don't need like piecemeal band-aid approaches that just displace the problem until they're gone, and then the problem's right back there, or to just stand on a corner and stand on the corner as though you're a surveillance camera,
No, it's completely. It's It's mismanagement. Honestly, it's mismanagement. It's overused. It's the go-to for everything. That's how we're going to reduce transit crime. That's how we're going to reduce crime on the street. It's a temporary displacement of crime. That's all it is. It solves nothing. It does nothing. It really is completely ineffective. And not only is it ineffective, it's a huge waste of money and a huge drain on your resources, because now when those guys actually need to do their job, they're tired, their morale's down, and they're not as effective as they once were. Mike Smith brought up about how the squad's no-showing on these details. To me, that's not a no-show. You have an arrest, it's not a no-show for me at all. Like, I don't see how that's even an issue. I don't have anybody else to replace him. That he was assigned a detail, he has a collar, check him off. I mean, you're gonna get transferred to the 4-7 when you have an arrest. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. That's even worse than I'm talking about, because like from how I'm reading it, like some kids just aren't showing up to details that they got for absolutely no reason. You have a collar, you're working, you can't go. That's it. End of story. It is what it is. To me, that's if those are the threats, those are ridiculous, because so you don't want me to do my job. That's where we're at now. The details come before everything. All outcomes before closing your cases. All outcomes before arresting perpetrators. I mean, maybe. I mean, it's sad to hear. And then someone in the chat asked, what options do cops have to not work these details? And I think it's something that really we should dive into, because they don't have any options. If you're sick, you could call out sick. NYPD has unlimited sick. Yeah, you'll be scrutinized. Yeah, people will show up at your house. Yeah, they'll try to rush to get you back to work. The doctor will tell you you're fine without even doing so much as a temperature check on you. They'll tell you you're fine. You're good. Don't worry about it. You're good, kid. Get back out there. You're good. Don't worry. You only got one leg. Don't worry about it. You're fine. You can't move your right arm. You're throwing up. Nah, you're good. We just need you out there 16 hours. You'll be good. So you could go sick. But I think the thing that like people fail to understand when we think about this, and I think even us, right? Like all of us, what about the single mother and her kid's sick? What about the single mother that's required to be home, right? Or the single father or the single parent at a certain time, and they can't leave their children. They have young kids. They can't leave their children for 16 to 18 hours at a clip. Those people are completely written off. What's their option? They have none. What's your option if, God forbid, you have somebody that's dealing with a terminal illness or an illness that requires heavy medical attention? We all seen what Eric went through. How would that have fared if he was in the NYPD? Do you think they would have been like, oh, Eric, don't worry about it, we'll take care of you? I don't think so. And I think more than likely, Eric would have never told anybody on the job that he was even going through it anyway. And he would have been done what most cops do, which I don't recommend doing, is I think he would have sucked it up and just tried to work it out the best he could and figure it out the best he could. And I don't recommend anyone do that, by the way. If you are dealing with someone in your family who's sick or terminally ill, or you have issues, I recommend you going directly to your union and letting everyone know, I want you to file a grievance on my behalf. I cannot be doing all these hours. I need to do whatever. But once you're ordered for that notification, what could you do to not go to that detail, or to say, I have to take my mother to an appointment. I have to take my child to an appointment. I have to babysit my kids. I have to be there for my children. I can't leave my children for 24 hours or 48 hours. What could you do? There's absolutely nothing you could do. And I think that's why you're seeing these very small classes filled with people who would have never passed the psychological exam or the criminal background check, or even the lowered education requirement that they just put in. Because we're just pushing those people through, even if they don't have the education requirement. If their criminal history is going as far as if they spent time in Rikers Island awaiting trial, making sure that their mugshots aren't being used in training, because we don't want to embarrass them now that they're a member of the department. We're just seeing classes of 300 getting put in, and you lose about 25% of them almost immediately. You lose about another 10% later on, And you're just seeing everyone saying that 10 is the new 20, and most guys will not make it there. So I don't understand how this organization thinks that it will survive. I don't.
Just to touch on what you, I mean, I had to jump off. I just came back towards the end of that. But as far as hardships, one of the things that, I guess, as you know, I was an executive for over 20 years, and you deal with a lot of hardships, and you have to weigh them out, because what some people think is a hardship really isn't a hardship. It may be a hardship to them, or they feel it's a hardship to them, but like, you have to put things in perspective.
Well, I'm saying, like, in Eric's situation, right? Like, I know Eric. I don't think Eric would have vocalized it. You know what I mean? And so that's on us first to vocalize it. But I'm saying, if you actually need help, it's getting to the point, like, I have to be there for the treatments. I have to take my children to the doctor. I need different hours, or I need a different assignment or something. Vocalize that. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, no, 100%. You have to let your boss, and it starts with your first line supervisor, right? And they're supposed to be your liaison to the executive, right? And you absolutely have to vocalize that, and you have to let people know. I've had people come into me and tell me, "Hey, do you know that X, Y, and Z, his wife has breast cancer?" I had no idea. Yeah, he don't say nothing because he's sucking it up, because he doesn't want to be a whining little bitch. It's not about being a whiny little bitch when you have legitimate problems. And I was always, no excusals. And I'll bring it all the way down to just the no excusals every friggin' weekend, right? It comes down to the finest. There'll be no excusals due to ongoing police details and everything else. And it comes down to the finest. No excuses, no excuses. It comes down from the borough. No excuses. It's on the roll call. No excusals. No excusals is never no excusals. It means very few excusals. You as the boss have to have the ability to stand up for your people and say, John needed off, I gave John off. I went down a car, I notified the borough. Is it what's called a discretionary excusal? Yeah. Look at that word, discretionary. I used my discretion as a supervisor, right? And I used to always tell my bosses that no excusals does not mean no. Don't be afraid of that word, no, that expression, no excusals. It really means limited. Take into consideration the member and the needs. Things are going to come up in people's lives. You have to address them. And then when you do have a catastrophic need where somebody has a family member that they are caring for that is in need of your attention, that person always went hands off to me, and I didn't care. And then I'd get questioned. They have the equitable distribution of overtime, and you'd run the command. Why doesn't John McCary have any overtime, or he has 6 hours of overtime when everybody else in the command has 40 or 50? Well, that's very simple. I'll have a private conversation with you. I'm not going to have it on the Zoom meeting or whatever. I'll talk to you on the side. And I never had a problem answering up and saying, this person has a legitimate hardship. Moving them off their tour, putting them on another time, giving them an inside job that doesn't even exist. We have to take care of our people. And like I said, to have a healthy department, you need to have healthy members. And mental health is a huge issue. We're going to be talking about it Wednesday on the executive perspective. And it's something that I always tried my best to push down, to teach the supervisors that we are human, your people are human, and you need to address it. I don't care what the roll call says. Now, the guy calls up and he's got a bachelor party. Yeah, you knew about that. If you couldn't get off, you couldn't get off. If you couldn't put that in for an IVD, you couldn't put that in for an IVD, whatever the case may be. Oh, I used to love, my cousin's getting married on Labor Day. Well, I used to tell the lieutenant, be like, I don't care. They shouldn't get married on Labor Day. They're civilians. What do they know about Juve? What do they know about West Indian Day? They're civilians. They picked that weekend because they picked that weekend. If it's really the guy's cousin and he's got a wedding invitation you know what? I'm going to make the exception for that cop. It's not that cop's fault that, you know, it's not a cop getting married on Labor Day. You know, it's their cousin. And if they, you know what, if it's their cousin at the state and they need a few days off, we have to make those exceptions. We have to take into consideration where it's coming from. You know, we chose this life. Our family didn't.
Yeah, you know, I just don't understand a lot of the things that are happening with All Out now. For instance, in the beginning, they said All Out was supposed to be about putting people in administrative roles back on the street. And yet you see some of the transfers later on, and it's like guys who you work in an A house. So in the NYPD, a house is like the busiest house. Then you have B and C that fall below it, right? So you see guys who work in an A house, and again putting All Out in another A house in like Brooklyn North, you know, or the same borough. And to me, it's like that doesn't make any sense at all. You know, this was supposed to be about people who were in administrative roles in units that have more downtime in the summertime, that are being put back out on the street so they can, you know, stay fresh and you know, help out the commands that need extra bodies. And that's how they sold it to us. But now you know, you see the transfers, and it's like I don't understand why is a guy in a squad having to do why is guys in the squad being forced to do All Out? That makes no sense with their workload the way it is already, you know. And the other thing is, you know, All Out. I'm not sure how do you get away from doing All Out, because, you know, I don't know how it is now. Maybe they've loosened up. You know, maybe they're more willing to work with you. I doubt it. But in 2016, you know, they were sending that. I went on All Out because the pregnant cop that they first selected couldn't do it. But when I showed up at the command, she was there too, and they kept both of us. You know, so it's like I you know, it's these disjointed policies that just to me it doesn't make sense. You know, and it doesn't make sense as it was sold to us, especially since we were in our unit. Well, we weren't like house mouses. We went out there for the FIOs and you know, we were a surveillance team that worked for them. So to me, it's like what they sold, the goods they sold us for All Out isn't exactly what it's turning out to be, you know. And it's not, like I said before, it's not a long-term solution. But I'll say this, right? Those of you who are active and you're being put on All Out, like certainly when it comes to intel and bureaus that have a strict overtime cap, right? The worst thing you could do for them on All Out is to actually be an active cop, right? Because then they have to fill out 49s for you. I had to have 49s filled out for me by not only my sergeant, but my lieutenant and the ICO captain. And the inspector had to talk it up to the chief. So, I mean, if you're active on All Out, I guarantee you they will not send you to All Out ever again, because you're what they don't want. They actually might want you to be a potted plant and not be an active cop, because when you're an active cop, now they have to explain why you hit the 400 list at the end of the year because of all your overtime and all that. So
yeah, I think it's a completely ineffective strategy. And Sal brought something up yesterday about like the restricted people, you know, and that's another thing. That's another stigma in the NYPD that I never understood. I never understood it. You know, you're going to see Jeff Madry wind up with 3/4, right? I'm not going to be shocked. I don't know that, more than likely, but we've seen over and over again big chiefs retire, right? Perfectly fine on the news every day, out at every crime scene, perfectly fine, retires from the job. Year later, order comes down, 3/4.
His 3/4 was put in 2022 and put to the side. He submitted for 3/4 the same week as me.
Yeah. So
I got denied, by the way, for those who were gonna say anything.
but consistently, well, you know, you weren't in the in crowd, bro. So that's it. But you know, but consistently you see that, right? But then, are there people that use injuries as a scam? Yeah, There are cops that do that. Would I say that the overwhelming majority? I don't know. I never really delved into the numbers, but I know for a fact that I've seen some hardworking members of this department been injured, who've been sick, legitimately injured, legitimately sick. I've seen people that don't even want 3/4 and don't want to leave the job because the job is their life, get treated as if they're scammers. And I'm like, this guy doesn't even want 3/4, and you're treating him like a piece of garbage. Like, he wants to get back to work. And you won't give him this, you won't give him the therapy so that he can heal himself. Like, that I don't understand. And so Sal had brought up like all the pregnant people that had got sent, the girls who were pregnant and people who were legitimately injured, getting transferred all over the city, almost in a way to say, like, you're a scammer, get off of being restricted. Now, are there people that potentially could be? Yeah, I'm sure there are. But I'm also positive that there are people in there that do not deserve to be transferred, that pregnant women shouldn't be in the court section and dingy, dirty, around anywhere where they're going to be prisoners that should be injured. And legitimately injured and sick people shouldn't be treated like they got the plague and they're no good to the police department anymore, the same way we treat the very active guy who has a combat cross and 800 arrests because he took an inside job. You shouldn't treat those people like they don't matter and we could just use you at our own will and you're useless and you're a do nothing and you're a scammer. But that's the mentality of the job, and that's that's the bigger thing I think that needs to change, is just the way cops are perceived and the way they're treated. I can't speak for my immediate supervisors because I've always had great immediate supervisors. I've always had people who cared about everybody, even the people I didn't like. I always did. I had people. I worked for humans. I worked for people who with empathy. A lot of people could say things about the bosses that I was with, and I could even tell you some stories. But overall, when it came down to it, when push came to shove, they cared about their staff. They cared about their mental well-being, their physical well-being. They cared about their family, and they would go above and beyond for their workers. So I can't speak on that behalf, but I could speak on the mentality of the overall view of the job on downward. And it's like, there is no empathy there. There is none at all. And that's, I think, the ultimate factor of what the NYPD is suffering from and why there really is a mass exodus, because there's like this non-human element there. And it's almost like I'm seeing all these articles about robot police. And honestly, they would treat the robots better than they treat the cops in the NYPD.
Yeah, it was with the restricted duty personnel moves and the scammers. And listen, again, in my positions, you knew when the guys were milking the system, were playing the games and everything else. And there's ways to deal with that. They get put in an administrative chart. They get Tuesday, Wednesday RDOs. You can actually do a 49 to have them put into the restricted duty pool to get transferred. You can also do a 49 to try to hold back somebody from your command. It doesn't always work when sometimes the restricted duty list is so small that they have to pull people, but you can actually do that. And again, but it takes a little bit of effort. You're seeing in the chat, I'm seeing a lot. It's disheartening to see and hear that, bosses aren't like that anymore. Some people question if I was really, ask anybody that worked for me. I don't care. I'm out there. I'm not hiding behind anything. I'm out there. How I worked is how I worked. I'm an open book. I've always been an open book. What I try and do is, by talking about what I did, is not to pump myself up. I have nothing to gain by saying how I worked, is to try and let people know that there is other ways of dealing with it, and that you have to stand on your principles, and you actually will be respected. You're going to get some pushback, but you'll be respected. And I think respected more sometimes when you stand up for your people rightfully. You can't stand up for everybody. It's like the delegates and the commands, right? There's always three types of delegates in the command. The one guy that's going to come in and bitch and moan about everything and everybody's being persecuted by the mean, horrible bosses. Then you have the other guy who only wants to pick up his check once a month and doesn't want to do anything for anybody. And then you have the other delegate who is pretty much the only guy that you want to deal with because they're realistic They come in with their hat in their hand sometimes to go, is there anything we can do for this guy? I know he effed up, blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing. You have to be able to manage personnel. And what we try to do, Rob and I try to do, is to let people know that there are other ways of handling it. The ways we handle it, not always the right way to do it, but it is possible. And you have to have the integrity to stand up and do what's right. I always tried to do what was right for the membership, for the job, for the city. Just do what's right, period. And treating people right is important. This restricted duty thing, transferring people, I saw that list. It was everybody went to the court section. Now, I am sure, and I know Sal put this out there, that there were a tremendous amount of people on that list that in their paperwork from the medical division says no prisoner contact. How you go into the court section and you're going to have zero? I'm sure there might be one or two little spots somewhere that you're getting hidden administratively that isn't going to have prisoner contact. But I'm sure that 90 some odd % of the people in the court section are going to have some sort of prisoner contact. And if they're restricted, pregnant females can't have prisoner contact, no matter what. No ifs, ands, or buts. Can't have prisoner contact. And a lot of other people that have legitimate injuries that are restricted because they were limited for more than 30 days are not at full capacity. How are you going to go and flood the court system, the Criminal Justice Bureau, with all these people? Listen, are they trying to push these people into an uncomfortable position so that they get back and they rush back to get put back to full duty? Maybe,
But what I'm saying is, if that's the case, I
we lost you, John.
Yeah, my mic went out. But what I was saying is, if that's the case, I could kind of get with them, but kind of in some form. But what I'm saying is, they just blanket everybody with that.
Yeah.
They just blanket in everybody with that, and it's wrong, and it's and then you literally I want you to get better. I can't get better. I want you to get back to full duty. I'm pregnant. I want you to get back to duty. I'm sorry. What do you want me to do? I need to get the surgery or whatever it is. Or I'm just not there, So that's the real problem here is it's always we don't want to hone in on anybody, so we'll just treat you all like crap, and it's right. No, it's not a good strategy. It's just not,
Yeah, it's taken people for granted, and this entire city has been doing it lately. You posted an article about 2 days ago about the city losing $14 billion of revenue from all these rich people that have fled to South Florida, and so this lack of appreciation for people is something it's not just within the NYPD, but you're seeing it within city government, and it's like they think people will stay here and put up with all this. It's like people have no better alternatives. And as you treat these young guys as bad as you are, you're gonna continue getting outside agencies that are gonna come in and recruit them. And you're going to continue having problems filling the academy. And as this spreads out, as this thinking continues to spread out to the entirety of city government, you're going to see more of that tax base fleeing. It's as you noted about the robot police earlier. I would say definitely that the job would treat robot cops better. And if you look at the K5 subway bot that was supposed to be a thing a couple of months ago, even when that bot was out there, you had 4 cops, around the bot, 4 cops just to protect the bot. Yeah. So it's at this point, I'm not even sure if we'll ever have that in the city because, the job again will protect it a lot more than they do cops. The job every now and then the job tries to that you see them trying to ease in solo patrols for like subways, right? And there's a pushback from the unions, thank God, and the job then has to go back on that and go back to two-man patrols. And if you think about it, the robot, the inanimate object, got like a squad of cops to protect it, but the job is always ready to throw out one cop to patrol the subway by himself. Yeah. So it's kind of it's absurd that they just don't value human beings, and value the and appreciate us.
No, they should 100% treat cops like they treat the robot, right? Give it time to recharge, check the user manual, see best practices, see when it needs maintenance. If we did that, I don't think, I think even with the diminished manpower, first of all, if they did that, I don't think that you would have a problem. You would have people running to take that job because there is good money. So I think if they just cared about their cops, you really wouldn't have a problem. And again, I'll tell you right now, it's not the politics of the city because most of the cops don't understand it. It's not the legislation because most of the cops don't understand it. It's not the rhetoric because they don't really care and they don't listen to the news anyway. So it really stems from the internals. Something I saw before we get on to the next topic. Something I saw that actually is something funny and good for a while. If those of you would remember, when you were a rookie and you get assigned to a command, and one day somebody called, you were at the TS on a midnight, and somebody called and said, "Yeah, kid, go up to the roof of the command. Helicopter's gonna land. Chief of department's coming in. Help the helicopter land." So, so what we're gonna see here is a female cop. Somebody's filming her at the roof and she's got her flashlight out in the red mode and she's waiting for the helicopter to land on the roof. I didn't fall for the trick. It tried to happen to me once. I was like, I was like, you can't land the helicopter on that roof. Get out of here.
I'm not going to say, John, that as a sergeant in the 7-8, I haven't been a part of this. As a sergeant, I might have sent a cop or two up to the roof myself. I was rolling when you posted this.
So a little laughter goes a long way. A little laughter will go a long way. I just thought this was hysterical. I was cracking up watching this. I was like, if someone says future chief right there, someone says that has to be staged. I'm telling you right now. Definitely, this happens. This is a 100% tradition in the NYPD. This has been going on for years and years and years, and there's always somebody that's gonna go. You're young, you're scared, you're on the TS, you don't know what to do. You're getting a call. I don't know. They said the chief of department's coming here. He's gonna land the helicopter on the roof. All right, go up there. Most of them they don't know the command, so they don't know what the roof looks like. You know what I mean? So yeah, funny.
And listen. I might be wrong, but I'm kind of glad to see it's going on still, to be honest with you. Because you need this. You need this type of levity, humanity. Once again, we'll talk about it, the humanity of the job, right? Yep. This is, somebody said in the 90s, this was a rite of passage. And it was. It was hysterical. But just to go back a little bit to what you were saying about, the 10 is the new 20, right? This job, and even when I was in candidate assessment in 2018, we were taking cops from other departments left and right to come onto the NYPD. And now it's like we're the training grounds for the rest of the country. Guys and girls are coming on this job, getting the training, knowing that they could take our training and go be a cop anywhere. It again, sad to see.
Yeah, Ron. That there's always a swagger to an NYPD cop, especially an active cop. Because you feel like you've seen so much, even in your short career, even in my 15 years. I felt that I saw so much that when I can go be a cop anywhere, and like I did a ride along in one of the sheriff's departments in Florida. And for the entire night, they had 4 jobs for the entire night. I remember I was like, 4 jobs. In the 7-7 in the summertime, I come in and the queue already has 8 jobs for me before I even get in the RMP, So it's like there's a certain swagger about an NYPD cop. And it's because you see so much and you do so much that you feel you're prepared to be a cop anyway. And as guys feel more miserable on the job, why, if you're an outside agency, outside department, why wouldn't you want to go plunder an NYPD cop? Why wouldn't you? So
Hey, but listen, are you leaving us for Florida too? Am I going to be the only guy left in New York?
No, it's just me and you here, bro.
That's it.
For now, I'm here for now. But let me tell you, I am looking at making my way down there as well.
You're gonna have to change this to the Florida Unfiltered.
Yeah, doing enough, doing enough. It's looking like that, right? So what do we got? Reza Chowdhury makes a post about a man being raped. This Crime Stopper poster. A man raped on a 1 train in Greenwich Village. I thought we had the transit all out. Thought we had 1,000 cops in transit, one on the train every day. But New York City's so safe, transit's so safe, crime's down, that even men are being raped on New York City trains. NYPD's looking for this person in connection with the rape of a man in the deadly and dangerous New York subway over the weekend in the Village. It's a good time to remember that the rape rate in the subway is up 467% higher in 2025 through the end of March versus that of 2019. So just think about how as the plans fail, the planners just keep on planning. So all of this, we have you guys down in the subway working unbelievable tours, telling you can't take meals in MTA facilities. You guys are doing this. If you're late, we're going to do that. All the nonsense. And this proves it right here that All Out is just a complete failed strategy. Because look, we're basically doing All Out in the transit. You've been doing All Out in transit for about 2 years now. Under Mike Kemper, it started. It's going through till today. Subway rape rate is up 467%. Reza goes on to state, accidental governor Kathleen Courtney Hochul, native of Hamburg, New York, population 64,500, claimed that every single overnight train in the subway system would be patrolled by at least 2 members of the NYPD. Crime's down. What do you think, Ron? Did you ever hear any guys getting raped on the train? 30 years.
No,
Yeah.
and I was a lieutenant in
Or dead
transit.
bodies.
And I never had any type of male on male sodomy or sex crime at all. It's, I don't know. And again, can't have a cop on every train. It's impossible. Moving them away from the turnstiles onto the platforms is the right move, I believe. You got to have a balance, but you can't have a cop everywhere. But just, again, you see these videos every day. Talk about perception, right? Perception. Perception is not good. Perception is not good. And, and then you have, the District 23, District 20 scandal with the CO, with the numbers, manipulation of the crime numbers. Crime is excuse me. Crimes in the transit system is relatively low number wise compared to the passenger ridership, but that every one of the crimes is a high profile crime, because it's out there. There's a million cameras everywhere now. Everything is caught on cell phone. The quality of life issues that are caught on everyday cell phones tells a tremendous story. And these people that are committing these crimes just do it with impunity. They're not worried about the cops. That's the scary thing. They're not worried they're going to run into a cop.
You know what it says that even with all of the shifting around of manpower, of the few remaining manpower that we have that they're doing, it says, what this says is that that's not working. Yeah, it's not a viable strategy, because the main problem, like we always go back to, is we need more cops. The fact that our manpower numbers now are approaching like the early 90s manpower numbers, and yet the city has 1 million more people than the early 90s is speaks to the nature of the problem. You need more bodies there, and all the problems that we keep seeing will keep happening, and the quality of life will keep deteriorating until we get those bodies in the NYPD. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and there's just no getting around that problem.
Yeah, I mean, you got this guy up now that's, for forcibly touching. That was always a big issue in transit, obviously, because the trains are crowded. People rub up against other people. People masturbating on the trains has always been an issue in the city. That's going to be something that's going to be very difficult to police. But these overt, ongoing crimes that happen over long, stop after stop after stop after stop, you have to say, when you're on the platform, if you're assigned to the platform, it's your job, right, to signal the motorman to hold on, and you're supposed to stick your head in. There's a thing called TOMS, right? Transit auto maintenance. Where you line up and you all step in and you're looking on the train. That's when you have a detail on the platform. But even as just not solo anymore, but when you have two cops, when you're on the platform, you're not supposed to have your foot up on the rail, on your phone, looking down, like we do see, or just standing around. These cops have to be given instructions on what the proper thing to do. They're there for presence, they're there for crime suppression, but they have to be proactive even on a fixed post. And to be proactive, they're supposed to be sticking their head in the train car on every train that pulls into the station, letting the people in the train see that the cops are there, letting the perps know that the cops are there, and to intercede if there's some type of crime going on.
So it's another post from Razor Chowdhury, this wacko. New Yorkers meet Edwin Page. He's accused of sexually abusing and forcibly touching at least 5 different women in Chelsea and Midtown on Monday, including a defenseless 23-year-old blind woman who grabbed her butt and then came back and said, "Hey, blind girl, did you like that?" and touched her again before leaving, thankfully, even though she was sexually assaulted. He also set a woman's hair on fire as well. Mr. Page has had at least 10 prior arrests. He was arrested just in Friday for assault and obviously free to continue his demonstrable pattern of criminality. Radical leftist progressive politicians in New York continue to champion policies that release predators like Page back onto our streets. Their dangerous reforms prioritize criminals over victims, allowing violent offenders to cycle through a revolving door of catch and release justice while New Yorkers pay the price with their safety and potentially their lives. It's a good time to remember that the violent crime in Manhattan South has now edged up for the year, marking yet another increase in violent criminality for what was once commercial and tourism heart of the great city of New York. So if you guys don't follow Razor on X, I suggest you do, at RazorC1. He brings the receipts. He doesn't just talk out of his butt. He goes through he goes through what people did, why it is, and he will give you the statistics. He'll break it down. He actually works hand in hand with Sam Antar, where they go through and they go hand in hand to bring you all these things. Here's the wacko that raped a man on the train.
So here we go. Here's him leaving.
What happened? What happened?
What happened on the train? Huh? What happened on the train? Stop me, G. Why were you slipping your fingers? I'm from Mom's house. You slipping.
What did you have to say to the victim?
Huh?
What did you have to say to the victim?
Save the victim. What is that?
What did you have to say to the victim?
I don't know.
Why did you do it?
You know, we don't do that. We don't do that stupid stuff. You're not gay. Do it. You're not gay. I'm not gay. Do it. You're not gay. That's not gay. That's not gay.
Clearly mentally deranged, right? All the crimes that we showed you all the time, it always goes back to the same thing. Eric Adams said he had a plan about about weighing in on homelessness and mental illness in New York City streets and on New York City subways. And like Bill de Blasio, has failed to do absolutely anything. Now, he's went out in the media recently and he said that he's now for involuntary removals off of New York City streets. And the far left, which, I mean, whatever. The people who are running against him are now saying that that's not a good strategy, that we shouldn't do that. We're kidnapping New Yorkers off of New York City streets. I know Ron, I know Marlon, I know myself. We've been involved in numerous, probably hundreds, if not thousands, of involuntary removals off of New York City streets from people who are a danger to either themselves or others. It is a strategy, I think, rooted in common sense. I think that it is not only a great public safety strategy, I think it actually helps the well-being of these people that are suffering from mental illness and homelessness. Ron, what are your thoughts around all this stuff that's going on?
Yeah, I mean, you have to have the involuntary removals. You just see a plethora, and everybody says it. And I think Mike Fury is when I said, "Yeah, oh, he has mental health issues. You have to get him help." Where are we giving him the help? Involuntary removals is forcing someone to get some help, and taking them off the streets, and you don't see it. You don't. They want to put out that you talk about. They want to put out the social workers and everything else. You have police-involved shootings with mentally ill and deranged people more and more. You're seeing it more and more. You saw it again last night, right? Someone that obviously was mentally deranged, was holding his mother. I don't know if were you going to get into this?
Yeah, no, this is more. Say what you're going to say.
I don't know if you were going to get into the story about the shooting that happened, just this last night. I woke up to see it this morning. Another mentally deranged person pulled a knife to his mother's neck, and the cops tried to talk him down and wind up having to shoot him. You see it time and time again, where we have to use deadly physical force against these people with the mental illness, and then we get scrutinized, right? We as the police get scrutinized because we didn't get the people to help. We used force against them. No, you think these cops go out and want to use force? It's one of the most traumatizing things to an officer. It's one of the heaviest burdens that we carry. If you're lucky enough not to fire your gun, which most cops are throughout your entire career, it's a successful career, right? Though just because, cops are put into life or death situations and have to make that decision, once again, does not take the humanity out of the cop. And it's a heavy burden that cops face, thinking that they may have to be involved, let alone the cops that are involved in those things. It's not something that you want to do. We're not a bunch of cowboys, gung-ho cowboys out there hoping to get involved in a situation where we have to take our gun out. That's crazy to even think that. But the police have to be part of that solution. for the safety of the individuals, the safety of the public, and the safety of these mental health crisis workers that they want to put out there to take. I don't know the result. You put billions of dollars into these programs. The only person I know that benefited from it is Charlene McRae. I don't know that any mental health persons in need. Where are the results? Where are the results of where all these billions of dollars are going to help these people? Because I don't see it. I see worse incidences, and it's probably because of social media that we see it. It's probably been out there the whole time. We're just seeing more of it because of social media and everybody having, great cameras. But where is the help? Where is that help?
Yeah, listen. I agree with you. I don't think that mental illness has increased. I think it's always been there, but there was an effective police department that kind of kept New Yorkers safe from it. I mean, like I keep laughing about the whole. It's not even funny. It makes my skin crawl when I hear, "Oh, we want people to feel safe too." Newsflash: you know why they don't feel safe? Because they're not safe. They're not stupid. They understand what's happening. They understand what's around them. They're seeing crime happening in front of them. They're seeing mentally ill going. No one's helping. There's no effective strategy from government. And what you're going to start to see is vigilantism for the people that stay in New York. And we've already seen it. And there's literally nothing there. So Marlon, before you go, I just want to play this video. This is Jumaane Williams crying about the involuntary removals. And I'm saying Adams isn't going far enough. And they're already crying that he shouldn't be able to do this. This is Jumaane Williams.
The choice is not between doing nothing and doing the wrong thing, which is what the mayor and the governor are currently pushing. It's not surprising that polls suggest New Yorkers support expanding the commitment of individuals in need, but I suspect this relates to the idea that someone should do something. And we all agree that someone should. And some of these tools are already available. We're either not using them, we're not using them well, or we're not providing data on their use. The proposal that's being put forth now, which risks robbing people in pain of something they are very often denied, their own agency. The unintended consequences of lowering the standard for law enforcement to commit someone, it could be dire and could lead to what the governor herself says she wants to oppose: the criminalization of poverty, the criminalization of homelessness, and how it presents in our city. Increasing interactions between law enforcement and people in crisis means increasing the escalation of irreversible harm. We need the capacity to make services more accessible and to be able to repeatedly offer, not require, them to the people who need the most assistance and the people in need. I hope the mayor himself finally wakes up to this, and it's not lacking on me that all of this conversation about involuntary hospitalization and not a commensurate amount of conversation about what happens after someone is hospitalized. What is going to happen to them? What is the continuum of care that is needed to make sure they don't come back in that hospital, or quite frankly, Rikers Island?
Marlon, what do you think about Jumaane Williams?
Yeah, I'm not going to hold my breath on the politicians in the city and state actually solving this problem. And the reason why I say that is because there's a homeless industrial complex and there's a social welfare industrial complex that feeds off of the money that's meant to help these people. And that money never trickles down to actually helping those people, But the state is always dangling the money in front of the homeless and the people who need those services to draw them to the state. I was once doing a paid detail at St. Francis of Assisi's Church. They have a they give out they have a food line during the weekday, and I noticed that I was hearing so many different accents on that line. I was hearing like deep Southern accents, and so I asked one person, I'm like, it's the middle of winter. What are you doing up here? I'm like, I know you're homeless, but I mean, it's the middle of winter. I wouldn't I wouldn't go to a cold place in the middle of winter. I'd be on Florida on a beach somewhere, or someplace much warmer. Well, what they explained to me is that the benefits are better in New York than they are in Florida, so they come up here to get the benefits. So now, granted, there's some people who need help. Of course, I get that, but you can't offer help to so many people that you need solutions to these problems. We don't need to perpetuate the problem. We need to get people off out of these situations and get them the help they need. And that's something that we're not solving. And it's not going to get solved in New York State because the progressives are in league with these NGOs, these community organizations, these that all feed off of the homeless industrial complex and the social welfare industrial complex. And if you go through the money, I'm sure you're going to find Jumani, like all the other progressives in city council, wrapped up somewhere in that. They have some role in that hierarchy of that money. And it really is sad because when you go to Florida, right, they have something called the Marchman Act in Florida, right, where they will take you off the streets, and it's not like here where like I've seen cops respond down there, and it's not like here where the EDP just runs off and okay, it's 90Z 91, they get you. You're going to the hospital, and you're gonna get treatment in the hospital. And I think that's why you see, even though Florida has its areas where you're seeing homeless and you're seeing this on the street, you're seeing less of it there than you are in places like New York and California. And in New York right now, with what Adams is doing, is just they're basically finding a way to make it look like they're getting them off the street, but they're really not solving the issue. I mean, you're locking them up temporarily, like we've seen with Transit District 20, or you're displacing them from one centralized, like maybe one tent city that's growing underneath, say, the BQE. You're just displacing the problem. You're not really solving the problem. So the problem is much wider than we think. It's a systematic problem, and it's tied into the complex that feeds off of government tax dollar money. And we've seen that before with USAID, and just because it's not being talked about doesn't mean it's not there. And I suspect there's a similar situation with agencies like USAID that exist in cities, and they exist as funnels for taxpayer dollars to feed that these bottom feeders could eat off of and get their crumbs off of, but it doesn't solve the problem. And that's why we keep seeing this over and over, and we keep seeing incidents like what we're seeing in the subway over and over and over again.
Yeah. And I never thought I'd hear myself say this, but I don't disagree with something that Jumani said. That the problem, a big problem is that we're taking these people off the street involuntarily, and we're putting them in the hospital. That's where we have to really focus, is what's the treatment? What's the treatment that they're getting once we put them into that treatment facility? They're not. They're being cycled. They're being medicated if they're aggressive until they're not aggressive anymore, and then they're being released. That's where I find the biggest problem. And who was it? Stay Trained Up is saying that they don't want help. That's why we have to make it an involuntary removal, because they don't want the help. But why is it that they don't want the help? Sometimes people don't want help, but a lot of times these people, it's the same thing with the homeless. They don't want to go to the shelter because they get robbed, because they get their, they get their few belongings stolen. They get assaulted in the shelters. So they don't want to go to the shelter. They'd rather chance it and stay out on the street, right? Same thing with EDPs that have these issues. They need the help. But once we take them off the street, are they really getting that help? Or are they just being cycled back out, for this whole thing? And some of them commit crimes to go to jail. We're forgetting that part too, right? Some people actually commit crimes that have emotional problems to get off the street, because they know that they're going to get certain, treatments or medications when they go through the criminal justice system, as opposed to going to Bellevue or Elmhurst or somewhere else.
Yeah, there's a video floating around social media of this influencer talking to he helped a guy get out of jail, and you see the guy walking out, and he's like, why do you do that? I wanted to stay in there, you know. And he's basically telling him he had it better in there than he does outside. So something to think about.
I think the thing that Jumanji misses, and then I think even Adams doesn't get it, or any of them, listen, I'm not for the NYPD having the authority to just institutionalize people. And that's not what this procedure is at all, because guess who's the first person that's going to be institutionalized? Me. You know what I mean? So like I'm not for that at all. And that's not what's happening.
They know where to find you.
Well, I mean, listen, you consistently see Viral News New York trying to paint me out to be a psycho, that I'm not right in my head. You see all these other fake accounts, 1 or 2 user accounts, trying to paint me out to be emotionally disturbed and all that. So I'm totally for freedom. I am. What I'm talking about here is someone who is clearly a danger to themselves or others. Now, could the police potentially abuse that authority, not put their body camera on, say, no, he was acting irrational. I thought he was going to harm others. I thought he was going to harm himself, and send me to the hospital? Yes. Do they admit me to the hospital? No. That what the NYPD does is bring you to a doctor in a hospital for an evaluation. A licensed MD then makes the determination what will happen to you. Something that happened in the past, there's been a big breakdown because those decisions that would have been made in the past to keep somebody in, and again, the hospital doesn't want you there, right? They just want you to get healthy and get you back out there. I mean, you're costing you're putting a strain on their staff. You're costing taxpayers tons of money. So that all those systems have broken down. So, Nate H says the bosses abused it with Schoolcraft. They ruined the policy of voluntary confinement. Absolutely. I'll agree with you. I think what happened to Schoolcraft was wrong, and I don't think that should ever happen to anybody. But the other part of the Schoolcraft story was that the doctor who interviewed him, who knew that there was nothing wrong with him, still institutionalized him and kept him locked up. It's not on the NYPD. The NYPD screwed him, but then the hospital staff went. So there was a breakdown in the system there. Totally agree with you. And I'm not saying, there's got to be courts involved. There's got to be a lot of different things involved. What I'm saying is Jumanji's advocating for we must not do nothing. But okay, Jumanji, so come up with a plan. Eric Adams doesn't have a plan. He's literally been criminalizing mental illness and homelessness. Eric Adams' plan is whenever I'm going to do a media tour, I'm going to send transit cops there that are demoralized and overworked, and I'm going to lock up all the homeless people and the mentally ill people for doing nothing without a warning, without offering help, without anything else. So, you're getting two ends of the spectrum, both incompetent morons, and in the middle is something that we could come to, I think, that the public and New Yorkers should come to. But first, we need to understand the issue, and I don't think most people do.
Yeah, I think this is a state problem, and I think a lot of the problems in New York City have to be handled by the state. It needs, because I don't think the city, and as we're seeing with politicians like Jumanji, I don't think they have the willingness, and with the way things are going with the budget and the shortfall and everything, I don't think they have they'll have the ability to do anything about it, So I think this is a problem that needs to be handled by the state, and if these people need help, the state should first of all, the state needs to adjust the laws, but I think the state needs to provide avenues where these people can get the help they need, and just take it out of the hands of people like Jumanji and city council and city government in general.
Yeah. So a lot of stuff. Welcome, Carlo, 1776, fellow law enforcement here in Florida. How does one join in on the call, the conversation? You're doing it. Weigh in. We'll, if you got a question or anything, you can always email the show, www.thefinanceunfiltered.com. We'll respond to you when we get time. We do get a lot of emails, so if we don't get back to you right away. But, basically in the chat, we have a live interactive audience, and, we interact with people. We appreciate you being here. Welcome. We got...
YouTube. I'm sorry, John. He should join YouTube. The chat is a lot more active on the YouTube chat room.
Oh, yeah, that's true, too. We got a lot more. I don't know how many people are in YouTube right now, but we got about 7,500 people in total on here right now. So I don't know if it's broken down up here, how many people in the YouTube chat, but you could see probably about 200. It looks like something like that. So you could join that chat as well. So we're live on a bunch of different streaming platforms right now. So listen, we're not without news here. There's a million different things going on. I just want to hit one last thing before we wrap it up. We're already over 2 hours. I think something that really needs to be said before we do. I continuously been getting notified about NYPD official trainings telling everybody not to listen to this podcast, not to follow this podcast, not to follow my social media, Eric's social media, Marlon Ron. Absolutely ridiculous. Every reason why you should. In the past, I was telling you, don't follow us, don't comment. I'm totally against that now. It's been going on for 2 years. Do they tell you not to listen to Joe Rogan? Do they tell you not to listen to whoever else you want to listen to? No, they don't tell you not to follow anyone. They tell you not to listen to the Finest Unfiltered. They tell you not to listen to New York's Finest Retirement Unfiltered podcast, the Executive Perspective, the Sal Greco Show. And that's every reason that you should, because you're either going to use your freedom of speech or you're going to lose it. And by the way, don't comment. If you're active, don't say anything. What are they going to do for everyone following? We have thousands upon thousands of followers. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's being done to diminish this platform. And it's absolutely, I'm sick of it. And honestly, there's going to come a point I'm going to seek legal action. And to all of you detectives and sergeants and lieutenants that are conducting this training, and my name or this brand or anybody else's podcast is in it, I'm going to come after you personally. And guess what? The city's not going to back you up. So smarten up with what you're doing in your trainings, because I'm sick of hearing about it. I'm absolutely disgusted. As every day I hear about it. I'm sick of it. Totally sick of hearing about it. I'm sorry for my rant, but it had to be said. It's absolutely disgusting what they do and how they treat their employees. Like they can't watch a show or have an opinion or listen to something because what we're saying is actually the truth, as opposed to when you go watch all these other fluff interviews around the Stephen A. Smiths of the world and everybody else. It's absolutely ridiculous. So last thing before we get out of here, NYPD housing officer busted for borrowing $1,700 from a driver pulled over, officials say. So according to the Gothamist, the officer was arrested yesterday on a charge of official misconduct for allegedly stopping a motorist in Queens while on duty and asking to borrow $1,700, and the money never got paid. Police said he's Armando Silvestri. He was assigned to night security cameras in northern Brooklyn. Police said, since has been. He said Silvestri stopped the driver on March 1st while in uniform at 159th Hillside Avenue in Queens, where he asked if he could borrow the money. The motorist lent him $1,700 in exchange for a promised fee, but Silvestri never paid the money back. The NYPD's Internal Affairs Bureau launched the investigation. Wow, they investigate things? I had no idea. And that's amazing. And in such a short time from March, wow, that's weird. I wonder why they couldn't do that with the upper echelon of the NYPD or the people that were threatening the lives of our children. I guess, I don't know. Maybe they're picking and choosing who they go after. So that led to Silvestri being charged with 3 counts of official misconduct. He was expected to be arraigned on Thursday in Queens Criminal Court. His attorney's information wasn't immediately available. The PBA did not respond to comment. Ron, you ran Housing Bureau. What are your thoughts here?
I, really? Well, you can't make this shit up. It's I don't know. I don't know what to say. How did it even come about? You just randomly pull somebody over and ask them for money because maybe they have a nice car or something? You have no relationship with the person? I don't know. Listen, how much time does did it say how much time he has on?
It doesn't, but he's young. It said, what did he say? It was 29, the cop. I mean, I'm assuming he's a rookie. I mean, yeah, they're saying the cop's 29 years old. So I'm assuming he either started late or he's got about 4 or 5 years on. I mean, I don't know. He definitely doesn't have a decade in policing. We know that. So
yeah, stay trained up. You're right. I'm speechless. Very rare. Very rare. I don't understand. I don't know where that comes from. Like, how do you? I don't know.
Yeah. It's
I never heard of something like this. Like, Marlon, what are
No.
your thoughts? Have you ever heard of this? They pull me over, ask to borrow money, never pay me back. You ever hear of this, Marlon? I never heard of something like this.
Yeah, I wondered if he was being sarcastic, but like this is just I don't understand this at all. Like what? Like am I missing a lot of context in this? It's
Right.
the whole incident just seems like it's just weird, you know?
Yeah. Simply E says, this is not a random stop. What are the odds that you will stop someone carrying that much cash?
Yeah.
And who will be lending it? I'm going to agree with you. I'm thinking there was a stop. I'm thinking that there was a search. I'm thinking that he caught the guy in some type of criminal activity. And that's when that whole exchange went down. Yeah, I still, for the life of me, I mean, who the hell are you hiring? What the? I'd love to see. I mean, was the body camera on? Who was his partner? What did the partner say about any of this? Like, this is, I mean, we're just seeing a complete breakdown in the NYPD, like complete, utter, total breakdown in the hiring process. And like I said, I there are people whose photos are being removed from trainings because they were in Rikers Island and all this other stuff, and now they're active police officers in the NYPD. I don't know. To me, this goes back to the hiring. I've heard people stealing from people, harder to catch, harder to be involved in. You know, people have robbed from people. Obviously, they're criminals. They shouldn't be cops. They should be arrested, removed from policing, and shamed. And they are when they're caught. I've never ever heard of something like this. Never.
Yeah, this goes back to why they don't like the podcast. You know, they don't like it because it's we're pointing all these issues out, and whereas where the unions are silent and everybody else is silent, and the fact that these issues are being pointed out here, they don't want cops watching it. They don't want guys getting to the point where they say, you know what, I don't like union leadership. It's time for me to run, and it's time for me to make my way up there and change things. And the hiring process and getting guys like this is all part of the issues. And you guys out there who remember, you may not think this is a big deal, or you might say, well, you know, what does that got to do with me? It's the new guys or whatever. But remember, these guys are working next to you. You don't want a perp working next to you. You don't want a perp dirtying up the command, you know, and bringing attention to the command. So, you know, the fact that the job doesn't like this podcast is because the job doesn't want you guys to eventually take the leadership role in the department. And as I've noted before, we're in something called the fourth turning, and the fourth turning means that this is where the leadership of the next generation takes over from the prior generation. And if you look at a lot of the leadership now, especially when it comes to the unions, a lot of them are older guys. You know, they're not adept at the internet. They're not adept at like you don't see them coming on here once a month, like I said before. And this is something that you guys gotta rise up and take control, because you're gonna be there a lot longer than these guys are there. And it's the future of the department is being shaped now. So do you want more guys like this guy that we're seeing in this incident, or do you want a better, more professional department? And the only way you're going to get a better, more professional department is if you keep hearing the issues and you take action, and ignoring the naysayers and the people who just want us to shut up and do as we're told.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the podcast and whatnot, I speak to my friends, executives all the time, and in conversation, like, "Oh yeah, I saw your show." I'm like, "Oh, you watch it?" Like they don't even like verbalize that they watch the show, you know. And even to me, in like text messages and everything, I can be texting them about other stuff and everything, and then I'll be on the phone with them about something else. Like, "Oh yeah, I saw you and Rob the other day." Blah blah. Oh, you watched the show? I didn't even know you watched the show. You know. And as far as, you know, like Marlon is saying, talking about the future, and you know, we're molding the future of this job. It's one of the things that was going to come up on Wednesday's show. And, you know, just to touch on it briefly, for those of you who know, I was in an accident Wednesday afternoon, so I couldn't go on the show. John, thank you for stepping in. And we were going to talk about Operation Impact versus the FTU program. And one of the things is that, you know, the training from the onset is the foundation of your police career, but it's also the foundation of the future police department. And we're going to do that show in a couple of weeks. And it's one of the topics it's one of the things that I think is important, because it's how you start out in your career and how you're taught and how you're trained is your foundation. It's like everything else in life. And now you have cops that are trained a certain way that are moving up in the ranks. And if they haven't been taught the right way, how can they, in fact, train those below them? And so I see it as this uphill snowball. You know, it's a snowball going in reverse. And we'll talk about that on the show. But, you know, and thank you for everybody that reached out and about their concern about myself and my family. Everybody's okay. Thank you, you know, for asking and getting involved. And again, thank you, John, for stepping in.
Oh yeah, it's crazy times, my friends. So yeah, so crazy stories. I mean, we don't have a lack of stuff coming out. Somebody asked on here if we could do an episode about out-of-state retirees not getting health care. I think the episode should honestly be bigger about the in-state and out-of-state retirees not really receiving health care. Because when I lived in New York City, my healthcare coverage sucked. I pay out of pocket for a lot of stuff. You know, I've told people before, I have a daughter with special needs. She's legally blind. A lot of the therapies I came out of pocket for. It was all I was about to get some type of services for her right before New York City turned their back on me and treated me as if I was a pariah and a dirty disease spreader and blamed me for, you know, everything that was happening across the world. So I mean, I think it's a big issue. I think the problem with all of us as retirees, regardless if you're in state, out of state, I really think that the big problem is we don't have a say in the unions. I've said it before. I think union presidents should be retired. I don't think they should be active members of the service, even fired. Honestly, you know, Tremel Thompson, I could go back and forth with him a lot, but I you know, one thing I got to say about Tremel Thompson, he got fired from the MTA. He came back and he won his seat as the vice president of TWU, Local 100. And the type of representation that he's giving to TWU, I might not always agree with it, but I got to say it's a lot different than any other union you're ever going to see. He's actually out there. He's holding elected officials, and he's holding the people who are running the MTA's feet to the fire. And you cannot do that when you're on the inside of that job. They're dangling your pension over you. They're dangling a lot of things over you. I honestly think the union structure needs to evolve, and because it hasn't, it's broken. I mean, look at my friend Marlon right here, terminated without ever receiving due process, without ever an administrative charge, without a department trial. Literally broke every law in the book. It broke all of our contracts and New York City labor law. Scott Monroe was on here. He promised to help Marlon. Where are you, Scott? You know, I gave you a little bit of time. I mean, it's May. When did he come on here? 3 months ago. You know, I mean, and it should have never been that you had to come on the show to do that. you should have known you have a member of your union who was blackmarked and terminated for absolutely no reason and discarded from your union for absolutely no reason. Perfect record. The only thing he did wrong was he held integrity. It was the only thing he did wrong. If he would have put in a fake card, he'd still be working. If he would have done any of this other stuff, he'd still be working. So I think, at some point, we might look to do some type of thing where we could bring in benefits and representation, because it's really getting to that point is like, we can only talk about it so much until, action needs to be had. And like, if the unions are really failing, all of us, not just out of state, because even in New York City, your coverage is not, it's just getting trashier and trashier. And they were even trying to remove that from retirees and really hurt you when you're elderly or when you're disabled. So, I mean, that's a big issue coming up. And like I said, there are solutions to things. You just need people willing to tackle them. And right now, I'm not seeing anyone that's willing to tackle them.
Yeah, if you guys saw there a couple of days ago, Vinny Vallon was on Sid and Friends.
Oh, now Sid's a sergeant. He's an honorary sergeant in the police department.
So Sid, I think it was Sid that asked him about the retiree healthcare issues, and basically
he didn't know.
He
didn't know. He had no idea. He doesn't watch the podcast. He didn't know.
Yeah. It's like, is this happening? We didn't know anything about that. How could you not know anything about that? But what I think is going to happen, unfortunately, and I'm starting to see it, is that the job has gone to a point now where it's already sold out the unborn so much that, I mean, what's left are you going to take from them? I mean, soon it's going to be 30-year. There's rumors keep coming up about the return of the 20-year pension for Tier 3. And I'll say this again, that's a pipe dream, okay? Because in the absence of a healthy fiscal ecosystem for the city, meaning you get new businesses. When you hear businesses leave Florida and Texas to come to New York City, then I'll say, oh yeah, tier 3 can get the 20-year pension again. But you're not hearing that. You're hearing the reverse of that, which is that businesses are leaving New York and going to Florida, going to Texas and Tennessee. And that creates a problem, because that's less money that the city has to fund city services and to fund the pensions. So that rumor is, I'm sticking to what I said before, that it's a pipe dream. Okay, it's a pipe dream. So what I'm saying is that the city has sold out the unborn so much now that I fear the next step is to sell out the retirees. Okay, and I like, you see that already. The guys who are on the job now have already settled for less retiree benefits, even though the retirees have actually won it in court. They've won it back, but the city continues to fighting it. But I see that was the first stage of them trying to diminish those who have left the job, and it's something that we got to keep an eye out on. And I fear that it's going to become a bigger issue as time goes on.
Yeah, Ron, you got anything before we wrap it up?
You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Got a little construction going on upstairs, so keep you from hearing the banging. Good conversation today. We got through it. After a tough start.
Yeah. Marlon, anything before we wrap up here?
Yeah. Well, we didn't really touch on Sal's show yesterday, but for you guys who didn't see, you really need to watch that show. And watching that show, what's stuck in my mind is like I don't know how far this is going to go, but if Bratton was involved in this, I would be so disappointed in him, because let me tell you, like, growing up in New York City and seeing the change from the early 90s, because when I first came here in the early 90s, like, I lived in the 6-7, and I remember walking to elementary school and like seeing like baseball mounds of crack vials on the corner, right? So seeing where New York City went from the early 90s to the late 90s, before I came on the job, I thought Bratton was a rock star, I thought he was a superstar, legend for law enforcement. So to hear that incident happen and like just to think it through and wonder if Branton got the call and he made the move to squash this case is like so disappointing, you know? And I kept thinking to myself, you know, what we heard here was like this, for those of you who watch wrestling, there's something called a heel turn, where like a baby face or like a good guy switches and he's now a bad guy. And when I heard this, I thought, man, this is like the greatest heel turn we've ever heard, because somewhere in between leaving New York, Branton 1, and then going to California and Hollywood and coming back here for Branton 2, we got a heel turn, you know, because he's no longer like the blue collar legend in law enforcement, but we're seeing like a corporate Hollywood Branton who's now working for the elites and squashing you know, sexual abuse allegations. And that's to me, that's like it's like hearing one of your heroes like has become a villain, and it's like, to me, it's so disappointing, you know.
Yeah, Ron, anything about that yesterday? Did you get a chance to check out Sal's show?
I did, and I was amazed, to be honest. I didn't know how deep that all went, and to hear, you know, Mike Osgood, you know, give a firsthand account of how he fought for that case and how it was just pushed back by the DA's office. You know, how he knew the politics of it and had to do an end around. You know, he had to work his investigation around what influences he knew he was up against. It was just amazing to see. I mean, we all know it and we all kind of do it, but at that level, to do what he did, and, you know, knowing, you know, even when I heard him say that, you know, he knew what was going to come down on him if they didn't make the notification to the DA's office, because he didn't want to make the special victims CO didn't want to make the notification to the DA's office because they didn't want to be, you know, unduly influenced and get it squashed right there. They wanted to get as much evidence as possible. And Mike said he's going to get crushed if they don't, because it's standard policy. And they made the notification, and luckily, speaking to the bureau chief that they spoke to, they got the go ahead to go forward. So then he checked that box, and now he can do what he has to do, and did a lot, you know, controlled call, controlled meet, everything recorded, built up such a rock solid case to have the DA just find the victim not credible. Just amazes me. And again, it comes back to, we see the woke progressive DAs of today, but to go back and to know the influence that was placed on the DA's office even back then, that they could use their prosecutorial discretion to just squash all the evidence because they don't find her credible, even though they had all of these other witnesses that saw her and things that are brought into consideration for all of the sex crimes. The mental state of the victim is so important at the time of reporting, especially when it's in close proximity to the offense, which is everything that they had. They had her reporting it immediately. They had members of the service saying her mental status, the people that transported her in the RMP stating her mental status and spontaneous utterances, which is another thing. You know, unsolicited comments that she had made that they testified to, video surveillance that completely backed up her story. To me, you can't have a tighter case. And Mike Osgood spent over a decade in that position, knows what he's talking about. He has credibility from his experience.
He's an expert, like, in the field.
100%. And to speak that intimately, and for him to get involved at this point, says a lot also, that he's not forgetting the case. That says a lot about his integrity, that he's coming forward with this now.
Yeah, he's really putting himself out on a rock. Yeah, go back, check that episode out. It's with the supermodel. Just long and short, just to summarize it for those of you guys that don't know what we're talking about. models alleging that in 2015, well, she alleged in 2015 that she was assaulted by Harvey Weinstein. Case was rock solid. Special Victims runs with it. Chief of Special Victims, Mike Osgood's on the episode with Serena Townsend, the victim. He builds a rock solid case, like Ron said. He walks us through the whole case, all of the evidence he had, everything he had. The model won like a beauty pageant in Italy. She was like whatever Miss Italy or whatever she was. She gets brought to the Italian prime minister's home, and while she's there, she observes people being sexually assaulted. She leaves. She reports it, right? She was being told all this stuff in Italy. Oh, you'll be famous. You'll be rich. You just got to partake in these parties. Sort of like what we hear goes on with the elites here in New York, right? She reports it. Her testimony gets the prime minister found guilty of sexual assault, right? So fast forward, she's in America. This happens. New York Manhattan DA Cy Vance says that the evidence is not there and she's not credible because she's a prostitute, because she was at a party with prostitutes in Italy. The party that she testified in court and had someone convicted over. The most powerful person in Italy. So complete misrepresentation of the fact by the Manhattan DA, and they dropped the case. What gets even crazier about it, though, is that they then, LA County, now LA, Los Angeles, they use her, they pick up her testimony, they bring her on the stand, they bring Mike Osgood and all of the special victim NYPD detectives on the stand. They run through the whole case. It's rock solid. And they convict Weinstein. So New York appears to be completely captured. And Mike Osgood tells about all the interference that was being ran at 1PP and how they were telling her she's a prostitute, she's a gold digger, she's this and that. And it's a very big deal. And honestly, if he is involved, you know, I think Sal said it on the show. He said, you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become a villain. I personally think anybody that was involved in that cover-up should be charged criminally, because it's horrific to think if that was my daughter, to think if that was anybody. And just seeing her, I'm like, this is just not how we do business, you know? And a few people had called me about the, you know, the stuff that happened with me when they sent cops to my house. And that's all I said. I said, this is not proper. If they're doing it to me, imagine what they'll do to other people. Imagine what they'll do to people who don't know anybody. Imagine what they'll do to people who don't have a reach. They don't have a platform. And the same goes on for her. If they did it to her, they could do it again. It's horrible. She was re-victimized by New York City, and her perpetrator was protected by New York City, by the NYPD and the Manhattan DA's office. That episode did not get enough eyes on it. People need to really watch that part. Even if you want to just go to watch the part, Chief Michael Osgood, Serena Townsend, and the model give their testimony. I had my mouth wide open the entire time. I was like, I can't believe what I'm hearing. I can't believe the names that are coming up. And I just can't believe that this could happen today. Even though it was 2015, I was in the police department in 2015. I didn't know this. If I wouldn't, this is horror. It's disturbing. It's horrible. And what it sounds like is, yeah, there are some elites that have fixers and they're committing crimes and everybody knows about it. But hey, they donate a lot of money to this one or that one, and we can't have them go because they give us a lot of money. Horrible. So definitely check that episode out.
And
start. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and she wasn't found credible by some conservative DA. He was found credible by George Gascon.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. You know, you always suspect that things like this happen, but to actually hear the details of how it happened, it's like I just can't believe it. You know, I just can't believe that this department was part of that. It's just shameful, you know.
And I just think, like, you're a higher up, you make it up there in the police department, and this dirtbag millionaire
wants you to shit can a sexual assault. And people went along with it because, it was the easy thing to do. Like, that's the ultimate litmus test, in my opinion. And like, yeah, could you come back to that and be forgiven? Yeah, but admit your sins, because that is completely horrific. I'll tell you right now, I'd never go for that. Never. Hopefully, and then to watch Bratton over all these years. Did you ever see the op-ed he did about how Times Square would be safer if they put a casino in there? And like, all of the data shows everywhere where there's a casino, crime has risen throughout the country, every single place. And he just comes out, and I was like, I wrote him something very nasty when he did that, and I don't take it back because I stick with it. Like, you're selling out, you sold out. If what they're saying is true and it has teeth and you helped cover this up, you should go to jail.
Yeah. When I saw that op-ed too, I couldn't believe it. The community board over there, by the way, doesn't want that casino in their neighborhood, and here you are pushing it for these wealthy guys. It's like, I just don't understand. You're a legend in law enforcement. Why are you doing this? Why? You're a millionaire. You're a legend in law enforcement. Stop sullying your record. Go out, like, age gracefully, like the legend that you're supposed to be. You shouldn't be involved in this.
Yeah, horrible. All right, Ryan, anything before we run? Sorry, now we're really done.
No, that's it. Thanks for having me on this morning.
All right, guys, listen, appreciate everybody being on here. We had about 8,000 people with us this morning. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for all the love, the prayers, and the support for Derek and Eric and his wife and his young daughter. Absolutely horrific situation. We will keep you informed. We'll keep the shows going on as much as we could. I'll have people filling in for me when Eric's able to be back. Obviously, he'll be back, but until then, he's got to take care of his family. So everything will be touch and go for that with New York's finest retired Unfiltered Podcast. Executive Perspective, as always, be on Wednesday. Sal Greco Show Tuesdays and Thursdays. So yeah, we'll be back at you. Listen, I appreciate all you guys and girls, and thanks for everything. So appreciate you. All right, everybody, be safe.
One year ago, 7-year-old Derek was diagnosed with DMG. It's an extremely rare brain cancer impacting just about 300 kids every year. The family trading in their dream backpacking tour through Asia for an RV right near the Los Angeles Children's Hospital. And treatments for Derek are very expensive. Eric saying the grueling tests have a heavy financial burden, forcing the Dims to cash out their 401ks to max out their credit cards, going broke, doing whatever it takes. Eric is not giving up the fight, and he is joining us now live. Eric, it's an honor to speak with you. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me and telling the story. I appreciate it.
Can we start with, how is Derek doing? What is his prognosis at this time?
Well, Derek is good-spirited. Right now, unfortunately, the prognosis, it's not curable at this time. So we're trying to keep him strong and stable in hopes that we could find a cure. So Derek's in good spirits. He's strong. He's eating well, but he's home resting, and he's right now receiving in-home hospice care as we speak.
I know you say Derek has shown just incredible courage, that he is your hero, and you're a former Marine and NYPD lieutenant. That takes bravery. Does watching your son battle cancer, does that give you a different frame of mind for what courage looks like?
Yes. Well, it makes me stronger, because any opportunity, if I'm tired, getting medicines, if I feel, how much more can we do this? How much more funds can we exhaust? There's no cost. It's priceless when it comes to your children, because the bravery that Derek has shown is exemplary. He's my hero. I look at him, look at that picture, strong boy training jiu-jitsu, and that's a spirit that he still holds inside. So that's a spirit that will never take away. That's a strong boy. He's a hero. I am so proud.